Jace, how are you, man? It's been a very, very long time since we've seen each other. How long do you think it's actually been?
Oh, mate, since we shook hands, it's been a minute. Yeah, I couldn't even guess when. But
so you
too long.
Finished
put it that
school
way.
what year?
Mate, I finished in the year 2000. Which stop asking me questions about about that. I'm already dealing with enough, let alone having to think about it. I'm getting old.
It's like you've had a spectacular life, so that you can at least have some things to brag about in that gap since we were at school together. Yeah, so we went to school together, man. So I finished in 2004, so not long after you. I remember I always played soccer growing up, and ever since under sixes I played soccer, and I loved it, and all through school. And I remember when I was in high school, I think I was in I would have been year 8. And I remember watching the first soccer, and I was like, man, I don't know what I've got to do, how old I've got to be till I can get in this team, but I'm so excited. I really want to get in the first. And I went to the final, and you guys were playing. You were in the first, and you were a striker, I think. And you were just crushing it, man. Yeah, you were just scoring goals left, right, and center. It was like this, Ronaldo up front just going nuts, and you were the star of the first soccer team at my high school, man. It's interesting to me that, well, it's not interesting actually that you've gone on to be a successful athlete and sports star, because there's a certain amount of dexterity that you have, and I think that one needs to have in order to be able to kind of pull off the tricky stuff that you're able to pull off.
Yeah, it's funny when it comes to bowling and bowlers, there's this stereotype to some degree that of all of the sports, bowlers tend to be the lesser athletes or athletic. But in my experience,
maybe darts gets a bit of a worse rap.
Darts gets a bit of a rap, and maybe golf probably as well. But in my experience with bowlers, especially on the Pro Tour, a lot of bowlers are very good at a lot of sports. And I think it does have something to do with just the years and years of repetition of hand-eye coordination, throwing something at a target with, the repetition of release, ball speed, and it's actually quite a complicated game, bowling. We have adjustments that we're doing all the time. So you've kind of always got to be constantly thinking. And so I think that element of bowling translates into a lot of other games where there are adjustments, where you do have to kind of think beyond the moment. Like, what will I have to do in a second? Because I'm going to have to make that move. So when it comes to other sports, you can, and this is a big leap. I know how it sounds here, but when I bowl and I throw a ball, I'm already starting to think about what adjustment I need to make next. And so when I stand in front of a golf ball or a tennis ball or whatever, I'm starting to think how the play is going to unfold, because my brain is already quite wired in preempting what's going to happen next on a bowling lane. And then you mix that repetitious motion where once we get the hang of whatever it is we're playing, we know how to repeat something. We can create these pre-shot routine type things for other games. And so while soccer is a lot more moving and a lot more tiring for the 90 minutes that you play, I think even back then, finding the right pass or, making a good play, there was a part of that bowler's mind about preempting what's going to happen and kind of creating that adjustment on the fly that definitely helped me. And a lot of other bowlers are the same. They're great golfers, great tennis players, all of which is hand-eye coordination and kind of that, preemptive of the moment next.
Yeah. There really is so much more to it than you think about, when you see a kid at the bowling alley with the gutter stoppers on and the what is it, the roller coaster thing, and they drop the ball down and they get a strike if they're lucky, But and then but when you actually go to the complete other end of the spectrum and you realize there's so much nuance to it. So I actually have a little bit of experience with more experience than most with bowling, because when I was living in Los Angeles, I worked at the Roosevelt Hotel in one of their bars called the Spare Room. And it's called the Spare Room because there's two bowling lanes in there.
Yeah.
So it's this fancy, yeah. Have you been there?
I have been there once, a long, long time ago. Yes,
yeah.
But I have. It's very cool.
Yeah. Yeah, it is cool. It's cool. You know, they've got fancy cocktails and they've got, two bowling lanes. So people can go and, you know, have a few drinks and so my job was the bowling attendant. So I'm terrible at math. So it was actually great for me to, because it's all with chalk. It's nothing digital.
All these mistakes.
Yeah,
people
it's all old school.
There with horrible games, which are actually pretty good. Or maybe the other way around. Yeah. Maybe you just boosted everybody's score a little bit.
That's it. If they wanted to get a good score, it's going to cost them. You know what I mean?
A good tip, good score.
So like, yes, your score can be manipulated, sir, very, very handsomely. Yeah. So it was all me doing the math in my head with writing it on the board in chalk. It was all about the experience. You know, people are there to have a good time. But I had to kind of maintain the lanes to a certain extent. So I learned a little bit about the oil patterns on the lanes, which, to be honest, I didn't even know was a thing before I did that. I didn't know I knew it was slippery, but I'd never really considered any more about that. And I'm sure a lot of people don't realize this, but there is a specific oil pattern on the lane that determines when the ball will slide and when the ball will catch. And that oil pattern can change. Now, correct me if I'm getting any of this wrong, but that oil pattern can change depending on where you are, where you're bowling, where you're playing, how they decide to create the pattern, and it changes throughout the game. Is that right?
Yeah, you're very, very close. So there isn't one specific oil pattern that goes on lanes around the world. We have the ability to create oil patterns. Now, the best way to describe
as the bowler,
as the organizer of the tournament, or the house, or wherever you are. So think of a bowling pattern similar to a hole in golf, where no one hole is really identical to the next. Some dogleg left, some dogleg right, some are long and straight, whatever it might be, obstacles with bunkers and water, trees. Something similar can be done with bowling, where the oil that you place on the lane using today, you used to be able to do it by hand, but now there are computer programs and oil machines and whatnot that allow you to do this, where you can create an oil pattern, and everywhere in the world can create their own oil pattern. Now, an oil pattern can be designed to either increase or decrease the level of difficulty of play, much like a golf hole. If I want to make a golf hole hard, I narrow the fairways, I put bunkers in the middle of the fairway, and I also put water all around the green. Okay, that makes that hole a lot harder than if it were 50-meter to 100-meter fairways, no trees, no bunkers, no water. So in bowling, the more oil that you put in the middle of the lane versus less oil to the outside part of the lane means if I miss it to the outside, it hits that friction and wants to curve back. But if I miss it inside, there's more oil, so it'll slide further. On the Pro Tour, unfortunately, we don't get to really compete on easier oil patterns. They tend to challenge us a lot more, which is a bit annoying sometimes because you're just
sure
scratching your head, banging your head against the wall because they're quite difficult. Meaning, you know, on the Pro Tour, you cannot miss your target by more than a 10-cent, 20-cent piece. And that's at 55 feet. If you're more than that away, it's probably not going to be a very good shot. And then we will compete for 6 to 8 hours a day for 5 days straight. So there is an enormous amount of physical and mental strength needed to be able to compete for so long while also maintaining a very, very small target, which is constantly changing, as you said. So as I throw a ball down the lane, the ball touches the oil and then that oil is transferred to the ball. So if I just keep throwing it in the same spot, I will remove the oil from the lane, and now my ball motion is going to change. You've got 120 guys bowling all at the same time. You're moving lanes. So those lines to the pocket are constantly changing, and I have to move forever.
You're not even on the same lane each time. So So
one
okay,
game
so this is
per
fascinating.
pair.
Wow. So what is your like moment to moment metrics of what's happening with the oil? Just by feel? Or can you see anything? Or?
You can't see the oil specifically, but you can see results and you can see ball motion.
Yeah, wow.
So if I'm throwing a ball and it's sliding and it's sliding and it's sliding, and then all of a sudden it doesn't slide as much as it did the last 3 shots and it curves earlier, that's my cue to be like, I have to make an adjustment. But when you get to my level, sometimes you don't have the opportunity to wait for the results. Like if I'm waiting for the split to occur, well, I will leave the split and my opponents will go past me. So there are many times where you start to see your ball motion, and it can be just an ever so slight change in that motion. And you have to be like, okay, I have to make this move before I leave the split. And sometimes you move too early, sometimes not quick enough. And so it's a real puzzle that you're constantly fighting.
And so absolutely. So you're also reading. You got to be watching like a hawk what your opponent is doing, because that's affecting what's going to happen to your next ball and your next 5 balls. And so there's actually, especially at your level, an incredibly high amount of consistent focus to be able to if you're going to read what's going on, you're going to be sitting there reading it the whole time.
Yeah, and then not only do I have to watch my opponents and where they're playing on the lane, I have to also be aware of the equipment. So much like golf, we have bowling balls that are designed to do different things. Some are designed to go super straight. Some are designed to create the big hook. And the ones that are designed to create the big hook tend to have a more rough surface, meaning they're digging into the lane as it's trying to curve. And that's how we get those big curves. Well, if somebody's using a really strong piece of equipment like that, it will take the oil away from the lane faster. And so if I'm bowling against someone who's using a weaker bowling ball compared to a stronger ball, that's going to also change the way that I see the lane. Or if they have a high rev rate, if they're spinning the ball like I do, super fast, well, that ball is spinning through the oil faster. It's altering the oil pattern,
churning it up more.
Exactly. So I've got to be aware of 119 other guys to some degree, what kind of equipment they're using, what part of the lane they're playing, and then also making sure I'm switched on, knowing what I'm supposed to be doing, and making those shots for 8 hours a day, 5 days a week until the major championship finishes.
No joke, man. And isn't it funny? You know, you think about a sport like bowling on paper seems really simple, very easy to explain. It's, you know, you could break it down to a 5-year-old and they'll get it in no time. But it's just like any of these sports, you get to this top tier level, and the amount of nuance and specific stuff that you have to focus on. And if you miss any one of these, you're done, man. You're like if you don't know what the oil's doing, or you read that wrong, so it's wasted. Your ball's wasted.
Mate, look, when I got to a level of where I got to in bowling, the one thing I think I very much appreciate more than anything about it is the ability to appreciate other things at a very high class. So you see something else, and in your own head as a fan, you might be like, oh, I can't believe the golfer missed the putt, or I can't believe the musician, got that melody wrong, or something like this. And sometimes it's also the opposite. You see something and you're like, holy geez, that was incredible. But to the athlete or to the musician, it was quite a simple thing to do because of their level. But the one thing that I really appreciate is I try not shit on any other sports or any other profession at a really high level, because I don't know those nuances in that industry, in that game. And so when I see
But
something
they're there. They're
that's
definitely
right.
there.
I know they're definitely
Yeah.
there. And so when I see something, I try to give it a little bit more like credibility and a little bit more like, hey, that was actually pretty cool, because I don't know how difficult it really can be. And so you try to listen to the professionals, or you try and watch it with a little bit more of a positive, view lens to say, hey, that was pretty incredible.
Yeah.
Because the same thing can happen with me. When I make a strike, someone might be like, yeah, I can get strikes. But I also know you don't do it the way that I do it, and the nuances of the game in which I have to compete at.
That's totally true, dude. I feel the same thing with it's actually really, it kind of unlocks something quite special. Now, by no means am I trying to say that I'm at any similar level in anything to what you are, but at least with playing guitar, I've done enough gigs now, singing, playing guitar, that I know it very, very well. And I know what my abilities are, but it also unlocks something to when you see someone who is at a certain level of ability. When you have a certain understanding, even if you can't do it, you can still look at it and go, oh, wow, my appreciation for what you're capable of doing on that instrument, for instance, is so much greater than it was for just the pure listener. Exactly that. You can understand, you go, wow, I don't think you realize just how incredible what he just did actually is. It's probably the same thing. You get to this level of being able to read a game at such depth that you could probably apply that to a bunch of other things, and you can see when there's something remarkable going on. You may not be able to deeply understand it in, like, let's say golf or music or whatever it is, but you can catch the moment at least and go, oh yeah, there's something special about that there. They're doing something very, very high class.
Oh, and look, whilst there are outliers where there are people who just are naturally gifted, don't really put a lot of effort into it, and just seem to be incredible at something, the majority of people in the world have to put in a lot of time, energy, and effort. And so again, when I see someone reach a certain level of something, and let's just say I do put it as a comparable to where I am in my career, I say to myself, like, if he has a bad performance, like, I know what that feels like. I know how killing that is, because I know what I've put in my career, the countless sacrifices, hours, pressure, stress, anxiety, discipline. And so when you have those bad moments, there's less of me that wants to go, that guy sucks, and more into like, I feel for him or her, because I'm like, when I have those moments, I know what it's like. And at the same token, when they perform really well and you hear other people say, it's just so easy for him, I'm like, believe me, it hasn't been that way. Like, it may look like it now, but that's because of everything that they've put into it prior. So there is this nice awakening and kind of, I don't know, the self-awareness that I've come to learn. I've been a high performing, successful athlete that carries on to other people, including yourself. When I watch you play, I just know you didn't just pick up a guitar yesterday and start playing, chords. You have been at it for a very long time, and this is why you're great at what you do. And so when you have a bad performance, I'm not going to be the guy that, has a laugh at you. I'm going to be the guy that buys you a drink and tells you it's going to be all right.
Well, there is something in that too, that I think where you can, on a critical side, you can see because I know that I have, as a musician, I've come a long way, especially as a singer. I listened to myself when I, 15 years ago, maybe a bit more, and I can objectively go, that kid doesn't know what he's doing. He hasn't done the homework. He hasn't done enough training. He hasn't practiced enough. He hasn't put the work in. That's why he's missing that note. That's why he doesn't have enough air. That's why he's squeezing too much to get to that high note, and it's cracking, all these, specific things. So I can critically go, yeah, that's not working there. And the same thing, there's, what I was going to ask you is, there's like, for sports and for where you're at, there has to be, well, let me know what you think about this. I feel like there has to be a certain mix of attributes in order to get to the level that you're at. I don't know if someone without a certain amount of natural talent can get to the top tier level by just hard work. I kind of feel like there has to be some blessing of some sort, and then you also must work really hard. What do you think about that? Because I often wonder about the balance between the natural gifts and also the hard work. And I don't know if just one or the other is enough to be at the top level. What do you think about that?
That's a good question. Look, I think there is an element of truth to that. I don't know if I would ever be so bold to say that if you don't have it, you're not going to get there. But if you have a little something special that's just, it's in your genes, and there's no fault, no reason other than you just woke up and you happen to be very good at something, that you're going to have at least a few rings up the ladder head start than someone below.
Yeah.
What I have experienced and seen with my own eyes is the people who tend to have the natural ability, that natural gift, they tend to be less, and this is a generalized statement, so this again isn't for everyone that I'm saying this, but they tend to be less committed to the hard work because for a long time
they don't have to be.
They were just better than everyone else. And so if you can distill that hard work ethic, commitment, discipline from an early age with someone who has a natural gift of it, then they are set and poised to be remarkable. But if you are just a hardworking person that says, this is my dream, this is my passion, everyone tells me I don't have it, but this is what I want to do. Well, you're going to have to work a little harder and a little more than those that do have it. But I would never say you can't get there. Now, singing, musicians, I don't know the truth of, because today's day and age, we have so much technology behind us, right? And so sometimes I'll listen to an artist on the radio and go, wow, that's an incredible voice. Then someone will post on social media a live performance of that artist, and it's a really hard performance to listen to. And then you start wondering, can you, in some things, create the it? Just, hey, you've got some of it. Now we're just going to give you the rest of it with technology. And so now I'm starting to wonder with AI and all these advancements in technology, who is real and who isn't real. But then at the same time, I'm like, do I care? I mean, if I like something by the sound of it, do I care if it's musically made or computer made? Do I really care? I don't know. So I'm at a really weird cross path now where I'm like, does having it mean anything anymore in some worlds, in some industries? Sports, I guess, yes. Robots can't do everything that we're doing just yet. But I mean, I don't know. Have you toiled around with a little AI and a little, computer stuff to help your music?
Man, you know what? It's funny we're talking about this because just recently, this is in the past week, I've been in a bit of an existential crisis about this stuff. It's actually made me kind of, it's really bummed me out. I saw this video it was an Instagram reel or something, and it was a guy had made a song as a joke using AI, and it was some rock song in the style of, I can't remember what it was, but it was like he'd made up stupid lyrics, and the lyrics were just nonsense, like I wish I coulda, but I never, and it was just nonsense stuff. But he'd programmed it in, and there was a riff, and it was the riff, the groove, everything about it, apart from the stupid lyrics, was really cool. And I was like, man, this is sweet. And then I listened to the lyrics more, and I was like, what is this? This is what's going on here? And then I read the thing, and it said, it's an AI generated song. And I've made this song as an exercise to show where we are at and where we will be at. And he was saying how in the future what will happen is people will probably be able to get in their car, go, I've got a 24-minute drive home, make me a playlist of Chili Peppers 90s-inspired rap rock that lasts for my entire drive home that is exactly to my personal taste. And bing, you'll have all this completely original music created by AI that is exactly the way you want it to be, the way you personally love it. And while for the individual, I'm conflicted because, as you say, for the individual, it's like, I want to listen to the exact kind of music that I love. That sounds awesome. That's what I try and make is my exact favorite style of music. But as the creator, as a songwriter and a musician, it's really sad because I feel like
scary.
I'm going to be obsolete in no time, man. I'm going to be gone.
Here is some positive light for you, right? And this is what I actually believe about any of this AI stuff is the one advantage which I think society still wants is they still want to be entertained. Now, you can put on a live performance unlike any computer-generated whatever you want to create. Even if it's a bloody robot on the stage, there's going to be, at least for the foreseeable future, no one's going to look at a robot on stage and go, that's a really great performance. He's incredible. It's going to always be, that's not real. And whilst the music that they can make, it's not real in the sense that it's been thought up of by a human, and it has soul and it has meaning and it has some kind of inspiration behind it. You can still enjoy the music and still like it, but I love concerts. I love going to live gigs. I love open mic nights. Like, you catch some diamonds in the rough at some of these places, and then you can talk about them. And so I think, as an artist, if I were you, to me, it's like, I'm going to make sure I'm continually making sure that my content that I'm creating is authentically human. Like, that it doesn't matter if someone else wants to copy it with AI. They can't copy the way I put on a show. They just can't do my thing.
And you know what I do? I actually completely agree with you because, and I think that, for sports, you're a little further down the line, which it's a little further away because the performance element is what it is. That's why people come to see you perform. They want to see the game unfold the way it is. Obviously you could AI doctor a highlight reel if you wanted to, but it's not real. People that were there go, that didn't happen. He tanked that last one. That's not
what's even more unusual about sports is let's talk about like because my son, I got a 11-year-old boy, loves his Fortnite, loves his online gaming. And when humans use computers in the gaming world, now I know this isn't quite the sports world, but it's closer to what we're talking about. And if a YouTuber is using a bot or some kind of computer generated whatever it is, and it's fake, it's no longer real, that is frowned upon. That is cheating. Right? Like, no, you're playing a digital game, but if you're using a computer to help you win, that's cheating, and we don't like it. It's not the opposite. Like music in some cases, some people are like, a Chili Peppers inspired, 90s rock rap, half-hour playlist would be amazing. But in the digital computing world of gaming, that is highly offensive, and your career is ruined. So I wonder if that same mentality, I don't know why the same mentality isn't with music. Why, hey, that's cheating.
Well,
like that's not you playing, that's cheating.
The interesting thing about this is that among musicians, if you take yourself seriously as a musician, it is cheating. But there's so many people who do it, and it is, and the stand, like auto-tune, for instance, is what I'm talking about. It's been normalized. Like, and as in my genre, rock music, it's even more frowned upon. And I like that. I've actually, when I produce and write and record music, I actually am using less and less help. Here's the problem. When you're at a gig and you've got a beer in your hand, you're a couple beers deep, it's dark, the floor's sticky, you're rubbing shoulders with some strangers, you're with your mates, it's loud as fuck, you can feel the kick drum in your chest, there's the light show going, it's an experience. So when the singer hits a note that's not quite there, you don't care because you don't even hear it. And if you do, you don't care because it's about how it feels. It feels so much bigger than it does if you're sitting there in front of this is the worst way to listen to music, in front of your phone, out of the speaker on the phone and hearing someone else is filming on their phone a live recording, you can just, for some reason, you can hear every bum note, even more so than if you put headphones in and listen to a proper recording. But the difference being that it's so jarring now when you hear something that's not right in tune, because the radio and all that stuff it's the pop music is so produced that it's perfect. But with rock music, I'm in a better position because people are, if you're a real musician, you don't cheat. You do your best to, and if you cheat, you fucking make sure no one can tell you've cheated. It's like getting surgery really tastefully. If anyone can tell you've had surgery, you've ruined it.
My lip sync is going to be so perfect, no one is going to even tell. I'm not even singing.
That's right. That's right. If you've got a little gimbal inside your bowling ball that is sucking it to the perfect spot, you better hide that bastard.
With my remote.
Yeah. Yeah. So that is an interesting thing, man. I think, at least again in my genre, it's more frowned upon. If you look among musicians, look around and go, is he using auto-tune? On like live, especially because people do it live, and it's just like, it's not cool. So it is there, but it's nowhere near as much as it is in like the gaming world, and it's an interesting thing.
Whatever's going to happen, I think we all are going to have to get used to what's coming.
It's coming, man. It's coming.
There are just too many lazy people in the world. There are just too many of us.
Yeah.
So, having computers do a lot of the menial tasks that we want, and having AI create us or entertain us. And you know what? I'm even noticing this with my own children now. Like when we were young, entertaining ourselves, getting on our bike and riding into town or going exploring or whatever it was like that. You didn't have to ask us to do that. It wasn't like that. It was, there is nothing else to do inside. Yeah. And so I'm going out and I'm going to do that. And kids today, they are finding, with this again, from my own experience, I'm finding it that it is so hard for them to find entertainment within themselves that they go looking for it online or in other areas. Even myself, like if my kids are bored, they'll come and bug them. They'll like be at my feet going, Dad, I'm bored. I'm like, okay, Dad's doing something. There's a big world out there. Go and do something. And it's hard for them to grasp that entertainment. So I guess like that's the part where I'm at too. It's like, I wish it weren't like this, but it is like this, and it's coming. And
it's hard. It's hard as a parent as well. I mean, my daughter's only 2. How old are your kids?
I have a few. I've got 4 of them. So I've got a 13-year-old. I've got an 11-year-old. I've got an 8-year-old, and I've got a 2-year-old myself.
Oh shit, man! You got a tribe going on. That's cool.
No more.
Yeah.
Please.
Oh, you draw a line at 4? 4's enough, is it?
My line was at 2, and then we compromised for 3, and then we had 4. Okay. So...
And then you got a bonus. You got a bonus round. Yeah.
You can tell who wins those arguments.
That's funny, man. Yeah, well, it's hard as a parent because you kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't. Like I want to do my best to give my daughter as little screen time as I possibly can. Because, there's a lot of information out there that says it's not good for the developing brain, blah, 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 right? But if I don't, there's going to be a point. Now, you got a teenager, right? There's going to be a point where they're going to be technologically left behind. I think that's not too much of an issue. I think they'll be able to pick it up, but they'll be socially ostracized because most kids, if not all kids, are on these things to some extent or another, and to completely remove.
Even right now with social media, like so being a public figure to some degree, I know that my social media can be, if I'm stupid, it can ruin everything. If I decide something,
you don't even have to be stupid.
Someone else can think that I'm stupid. Like if I find something funny and decide to share that something funny and someone doesn't like it, I can get into trouble. Now, I've also seen it like where, I don't know, it can be a very negative pool of voices. And
More so than positive, man.
Oh, 100%. It's always louder for the negative. And so I have a teenage daughter, and when she was, becoming getting into high school, it was this: can I get Snapchat? Can I get Instagram? Can I have my own phone? Can I get all these things? And I tell you, the paranoia of, if I do, what if something bad happens? But just as you said, when she was one of the last students in her year to get these things, it was socially awkward and embarrassing and somewhat, to some degree, sad for her, because she'd be like, all my other friends have this and I don't, and I'm disconnected, and now I'm not
I'm the weirdo.
It's just, you're like, okay, so we've got to let you in, but geez, we've got to do a really good job at educating you on how to take care of yourself. And that is a huge fear that I have. Once upon a time, we used to go outside, look both ways before you cross the road. All right, you're safe.
Yes.
If you can do that, don't jump into a van with a guy.
Don't talk to strangers.
Yeah.
Don't get hit by a car.
No. Now it's like, can you interpret a 48-year-old man who's pretending to be a 13-year-old girl? Like, it is a bit scary.
And even something even more simple, like, can you handle a group of your peers ganging up on you digitally and talking shit about you because that's what they've decided is happening, and everybody spreads the word like that?
It comes home with you. When you had a bad day at school before all of this, someone was giving you a hard time. Well, when you left school, that's it. You didn't have to deal with them. You have to deal with their crap or what anyone else was saying. But now you come home, you open up your phone, you're scrolling on your own social medias, and all of a sudden now you can get berated while away from that environment because it follows you. And I think that's another hard thing to deal with. But we're going to do the best we can.
It's
mate.
brutal.
We're going to do the best we can.
Yeah.
Meanwhile,
I'm trying to.
Tuners out there, let's take this back. Any of you auto-tuners, you're not real musicians, all right?
That's right. You're not a real musician. You're a fake. You're a phony. Yeah, man. Yeah, it is this digital world. It's coming on us thick and fast. We just gotta embrace it while we can. So you spend a bit of time in Orange.
I spent half a year here. Yeah. So the other half is in the States on the American Bowling Tour, the Professional Bowlers Association Tour, PBA. So I spend probably 6 months to 5 to 6 months over there, and then I come home. I used to travel even more when I was trying to make a name for myself. I would travel the Asian market, the European market, the amateur scene all over the world. And so when these events would pop up, because you're trying to win money, you're trying to win titles, and you're trying to make a name for yourself, you've got to go and tell. So now at least I have the luxury and flexibility of being quite selective with what I want to do and where I want to go. And that's I've been very lucky that my sponsors and everyone that's behind me, if I tell them, oh, look, I have to leave America, I've got to go home for a couple of weeks, I've got these things that I got to do for the family back home, or I'm going to go to a wedding or whatever it might be, so I'm going to miss some of these pro events. Is that okay with you guys? They're always supportive. To be fair, I typically win enough. So if I miss one, it's not the end of the world if I'm winning, but I feel like I got to keep winning to have those luxuries.
Well, and that's something that's very cool about your sport, is that there's got to be a hell of a lot more longevity in being a pro bowler than, martial arts or football or something. A lot of these other high energy sports, once you get to 40, you're lucky if you can.
Even 30. Yeah, look, in the world of sports, that's built around athleticism in the traditional sense. How high can you jump? How fast can you run? And how strong you are.
Output. Yeah.
If you miss a half a step, and again, even though Australia is a little bit smaller, our sport is taken very seriously, and so is the money thrown at it. But more so in the US. Like when I'm looking at an NBA game, the amount of money they're putting into the players. If you are half a step behind the next kid coming through, you're a wasted money. It's not looked at it from a human aspect anymore. And so if you're not...
No, it's a financial investment.
Exactly. If you can't do your job as good as the next kid coming through that's younger, faster, stronger, you're gone. You're out of the league. And so therefore the turnover in age is very quick. And there's only a handful of guys to take LeBron James out of the equation, or even Stephen Curry and Kevin Durant, who have shown that they are brilliant for a very long time. I think the average lifespan in NBA, NFL, even NRL is less than 3 years or 4 years. It's like, so you've got this very short window to just make all of your money, perform at the highest level, and then you're cut out. That's it. You're gone. And one of the things that
And what do you do with your life?
Exactly. So that's one of the things I'm really grateful about bowling is if I can maintain my fitness and I can look after myself, I don't have that high impact. So for me, if I do get a little sore, a little older, hey, as long as I'm still able to throw that bowling ball and think with my own brain, right? And think with my own brain how to make these adjustments.
It's about staying sharp.
Okay. Yeah. But I know a lot of athletes that they have a really hard time because it is a drug. It is fuel. They get given this incredible opportunity to be at the highest level of a particular sport, and it lasts for a couple of years, and the money's rolling in, and everything's great, and then they get hurt. Their knee, they rupture something, and so that takes 6 months off. They come back, they're not as good. No one wants them. There is a mental health problem with athletes that can no longer do it anymore. And I do wonder if it's the same thing with musicians. Even though, yes, your voice can carry on, but at the same time, maybe your voice changes or you can't hit a certain range of notes that you're famous for hitting anymore. And then you're like, now what do I do? Like, this is who I am. Yeah. This is my life, my blood, my soul, my everything, and I can't do it anymore. So I'm very aware of that in sports and in my sport. I'm grateful I get to do it for longer. But even though it's longer, there will be a day where, I can't do it as good as everyone else anymore.
Physically,
So I got to figure out what I'm going to do with my life.
I think that, there's a few things in that are very, very intriguing. Like when you talk about a musician, for instance, it's all performance. You need to be able to, it's about the performance. So, but if you also need to be able to physically carry out the performance. And there are some guys like who, a lot of guys, they just completely let themselves go. Like a great example is Vince Neil, the lead singer from Motley Crue. Mm-hmm. I mean, I saw them recently, and he's in better shape than he's been in, but he's not in good shape, and he does not sound good, and he just doesn't take care of himself, and it's really disappointing. Whereas you got guys, you can still do it, like Bryan Adams and Bruce Springsteen. These are older dudes now, man, and they are still crushing it. They're super fit. Their vocals are on point. They're just as good as they've always been, and they're old dudes because they clearly, that's not an accident. They make they understand that there is a physical requirement for them to do what they do. Mm-hmm. So then you bring that over into sports. And the thing that's cool about musicians, like people will still go and see Motley Crue or, Bon Jovi. Poor Bon Jovi, man, his voice is cooked. He's just, I don't know what's wrong with him if he's unwell, but he is fried. But people still go because it's the performance. They love him. They have an emotional attachment to that artist. And there's part of that carries into sports. And that's what's kind of, obviously it's a lot more about the performance. You have to perform your skill. But there's also an element of people get attached to the players, to the personality. Like I watched the UFC yesterday, and Sean O'Malley was, defending his title again. And he's the dude with the big, fluorescent pink and green afro hair, and he's got the cornrows, and he's a real character. Now, granted, he's a weapon, and he's defended his title now multiple times. But even if he wasn't quite that good, he's still very interesting, and he's got himself to a point where he's a very interesting person to watch. And I commend you on that. I don't know how intentional this is for you, but you're an interesting bowler. There's no one who bowls like you. I mean, people try, but you even if you were quite shit, which you're clearly not, it would still be interesting. Wow, check out this dude. Look at this weird style he's brought in. Man, he's really ripping that ball. This is an interesting player to watch. So then you combine that with the fact that you are still crushing it, then it's even more interesting. So there is that, like, obviously performance element of it, you know, you got to win, but there's also like a performance of, this is a great person to watch in this sport. And I feel like you're kind of juggling, but how intentional is that for you to be a character, you know?
Unintentional altogether. I mean, it was never my strategy. Was I'm going to do something a little different, and that's going to be my kind of shtick, and that's how I'm going to make my name for myself. It was born out of necessity on how I bowl. It's just because I was too little to actually bowl the ball normally. And then as I got better, it stuck with it, and I was really good at doing it my way. But
you got the hang of doing it.
The story behind the two-handed bowling action that I created was...
Yeah, so did you pioneer this, you think?
No. Believe it or not. No. One other guy...
Rugby probably did, to be honest.
One other guy in the United... Now, of course, I didn't know this, and this was prior to, you know, the advancement in the internet. But there was another guy in the 70s or 80s who had done it. Not nearly as good. Like, maybe if I'm being really... If I can be so honest. He was good.
How could he be, mate? He tried his best, didn't he?
He was good, but he didn't win any major championships.
He was fine
or anything like that. It was good. Yeah. So when I came onto that scene and started winning those major championships, now we see the I guess influx of my participation and what it's doing to the game. The conversion of traditional one-handed, traditional swinging players to the way that I do it now. And I definitely don't think I pioneered it, because there was someone prior to me. I didn't know he existed, so it didn't really affect me. It wasn't like I looked at him and said, I'm going to do that better. I just did my own thing, and it happened to be something similar. But I think I definitely made it famous in terms of the success that I have, made it well known. Coaches now are doing, you know, clinics and they're doing their studies on how I throw the ball so they can understand it. And like, that's pretty wild to me. But
that's wild, man. What a trip, huh?
It is a bit weird to see that the world is shifting.
Yeah.
It's a bit like a little bit like the Furzey flop in high jump, or I don't know. I should actually learn this. But the ski jumper who first learned that if my skis go at a V, I can go further. Like, so there have been evolutions to the games of sports forever. And this is one in bowling now that is kind of happening. And I think I'm a huge reason for that. So it is a bit weird.
Yeah.
When someone comes up to you and says, I bowl like you. And I'm like, wow, for a long time, no one did. So.
And you're kind of like, I only bowl like me because when I was a kid, the ball was too heavy.
Exactly.
And that's how I bowl. Isn't that funny how and more often than not, people think, oh, wow, it's this revolutionary scientific calculation of a new thing.
Just a little boy wanted to go bowling. That's it. Just a little boy wanted to do it himself.
Yeah, because you guys owned the bowling alley, right?
Yeah. So mum and dad built the orange 10-pin bowl a couple of weeks after I was born. It opened.
Wow.
And so at 18 months, so you've been there plenty of times.
Heaps of times, man. That was one of the hangs when I was growing up.
Hang spots. Oh, yeah. And so, a couple of 18 months into the bowl being opened, I'm this little boy toddler who wants to bowl by himself, doesn't want mummy and daddy to help him. And so, I pick up this ball and just dump it down the lane and just do that over and over and over and over. And then, I'm just gradually getting
That's
better.
how you did it.
And nothing stopped me from doing what I loved. And this is what I love and how I love to do it.
It is not unlike a rugby pass.
Very similar. Technique. Yeah, very similar. In the way that there's that rotation, the spinning action, and the ball is to the side of the body. Sometimes when I say, I bowl with two hands, there's like this grandma, you stick it between your legs.
Through the legs.
Your legs up and you, no, not quite like that. But
That's great.
yeah, a rugby pass is closer to the action where it's on the side of your body and you kind of just fling it down and you create those revolutions as you would a spiral in a football, in a rugby league or rugby union
Yes.
ball, of course.
Yes. Because man, you're getting a lot of fizz on that ball, man. It's actually quite amazing to see how much you're able to rip that ball in at the last minute. And this is again coming back to the oil pattern, but to be able to read that so well, and like you don't even know how much it's spinning until it's like the ball's basically about to go in the gutter and then just like right angle straight back into the middle. It's really cool to watch, man. Is it?
Yeah. So about, what is it?
Yeah.
I think my last stats that were recorded was like 525 RPM to 575 RPM. The ball is spinning when I let it go. And so now in the Pro Tour, there is a lot of two-handed players on the Pro Tour now. And so really? There's probably, if I were to just think really quickly, more than 15, more than 20. More.
Wow. And you used to be, you were the only guy for a while?
Me, and then another guy came in, and then another one or two, and then it was like overnight. In the last 3 to 5 years, it feels like there's been one, and then in the last year, just a bunch. Just kind of, it's almost like they became old enough, like to be a pro athlete. Like these young kids maybe watched me bowl for the last 15 years on the Pro Tour. And so you think of a 13-year-old, 14-year-old kid who's watching something, wants to do it. Now they're 15 years older. So now they're 28, ready to go. And it just definitely feels like it hit all of a sudden. And so you look left and there's two-handed bowlers there. You look right, there's two-handed bowlers there. And they're all really, really good. Because, and I do see a little bit of me in their game. Like they've studied me or someone has and has told them to do certain things. And so I'm like, oh, geez, these kids they're going to be so much better than me because they just have so much more information at their fingertips now.
They might be able to see the things that you can't see about your own game that they can improve.
Probably.
Now, tell me, when you first came in doing this unorthodox style, how was it received within the industry?
Yeah, the first few events I actually played on the Pro Tour as an amateur. I had there were 2 events in the year that you could enter as an amateur, and I would do okay. Yeah, I played the Masters once and the US Open once. So there was 2 events. Everyone kind of looked at me and saw me. I had made somewhat of a reputation for myself as an amateur internationally. And so there was a little bit like, intrigue. But then I didn't go back to the Pro Tour per se soon thereafter. I went back to Europe and Asia. So they kind of saw me, and then I think they kind of forgot about me a little bit. When I came back and I was ready for the Pro Tour, it was hard. It was really hard because I'd gotten a lot better at this point. And so in my first rookie year, I win a championship. I become one of the top 10 guys really quickly the season after. And then I start winning like a lot and start breaking records, and I start winning major championship after major championship. And the American crowd is unlike any crowd in the world, because if they love you, and I do have fans that love me, so that's very, very kind, and I'm very grateful for that. They will support you. However, if they don't like you, they are not afraid to say whatever comes to their mind. And sometimes it can be a little, it can be a little harsh. It can be a little like, holy shit, really?
Like, are you talking mid-game? People are just sledging you from the crowd?
Yeah, like, and the competitors I played against, wasn't really like, they just didn't like the way that I played, and the jealousy of that was because I was winning and they weren't, and it's money, and it's it's legacies and it's livelihood.
Yeah.
So I get it.
Well, you think about they've spent all this time. Yeah, they've spent all this time learning this technique, and this is the way you do it. And then this fucking dude comes in from Australia with his, he's butchering our style. He's doing his whole new thing. So that shouldn't be allowed. And secondly, he's winning.
Yeah.
So it's obviously better than what I'm doing. That's a hard pill to swallow, man. So I can understand how they would be like, fuck this guy.
They were way more like, it's cheating, right?
Yes.
That's what they were more like.
Yeah.
And they wanted to see me, or at least the style be banned. And that was not fun to deal with. But the crowd were way more personal. The competitors that I bowled against, they didn't give it to me like, Jason Belmonte is cheat. It was the style or whatever it was. But the fans, go home, go back to Australia. This is not how you bowl. You're ruining our game. And this is the game I love and I'm passionate for. And you have a percentage of the crowd saying you're ruining it. As an adult, you hear it and you're like, probably it shouldn't hurt that much. But when you're on the approach and you're bowling, you're doing something that you love and you hear this crowd of people abusing you for doing something the way that you do it. And yes, it then went into the social media side of things and the postings and the tagging. And I'm this, young kid who's just kind of learning social media as everyone else is, not realizing you can actually not look at it. And you don't know who these people are. I'm reading everything and I'm like, oh my God, this is brutal. And that was hard. That was a really hard thing to get through. But then eventually it was a motivation to some degree to be like, right, this is an opportunity for you to show that you belong. Like they may not like it, but you are going to win. And you were going to win a lot and you were going to break all of their records. And this was the thought process that I had. And you're going to give them no choice, whether they like it or not, but you're going to give them no choice to respect it. That's it. That's all I wanted from them was to say, we hate what you do. We don't like you, but shit, dude, you're really good at it.
He's good at it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're really good at
for you, man. And because that's it. It's not, good for you for coming to that realization that you can't please them all, and it's just like that's their bullshit. Because it doesn't surprise me that was your experience either, man. Because whenever there's anything that is revolutionary, for lack of a better word, that it's never received well because people don't want to change. They don't want to. They don't want to embrace the fact that what we know to be the best way to do something is not the best way to do something. Because then you have to embrace, well, hang on, either I'm like I've been lied to or I'm just wrong. And that's a hard pill to swallow. People don't want to embrace that. So it's much easier to go, you know what, let's just kill this, whatever this thing is that's threatening our bowling worldview. Let's just squash it, and then we can get back to business as usual. But for you, is there anything about what you're doing that is close to being against the rules?
No. And it was just a breakdown of tradition versus new.
Yeah.
And
just dogma.
That's all it was, and I think the thing that helped me push through all of that was I wasn't trying to do this for anyone else. Like this was authentic me. Actually, and I'm not going to tell you who because I don't want to name drop, but I actually spoke with two separate musicians who are very, 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 very popular. And I asked them the question one time about, how do you make music that every time you make it, every single time it's successful? Like people change and what they like changes. And there's a lot of people, and to find people enjoy music and enjoy something, enjoy something. It's hard. It's hard to have everybody like something. There are so many opinions. And both of them on two separate places, two separate occasions said something very similar. They said, I make the music for me. Like, I make what I love to make. And if I'm lucky and someone else likes it and wants to buy it or listen to it or come to my gigs and come to my shows, that's a bonus for me, because I'm not really thinking, what does my demographic want to hear from me today? Like, they just sit in the studio, they write their lyrics, they write their music. It means something to them. It comes from them. It's authentic. They put it out there. And honestly, they said, and then we hope everyone likes it, because it's hard. It's hard to put something you love out there. And yeah, the public can be cruel, like it was to me bowling, or like it can be to a musician. You put an album out there that isn't as good as the last one, as per the opinion of someone else, you get crushed for it. And meanwhile, it's like, dude, I put this out because it came from me. Like, I love it. You know,
it's authentic.
It would be hard.
Yeah. You used the word authentic a few times there, and I think that's the magic. That's the magic bullet right there, because
you just got to hope then after that people want to hear from authentic me or watch authentic me do something. You just trying to make something for someone else, I think, is a scary road to climb, because then you're not really who you are. You know, you're just
I heard Rick Rubin talk about this the other day. He's the guy who's produced everyone. Rick Rubin's a super famous record producer. And one of the things he was talking about with art, I think he was quoting someone else, but he was basically saying the moment you start doing it for anyone else, you've gone off the track. You need to come back to, all you need to focus on is do it for you, and then release it to the world, and whatever happens, happens. And it's kind of the same thing. Like, this is why it's working for you, is because it's authentic. This is just how I bowl. And it's like, this is what I'm putting out there. And guess what? It works. So suck it, It's kind of like, it's this. And I think the other thing too about coming back to the music industry is look, I can't speak. My personal opinion is I love pop music. I'm a rock guy, and I like some real heavy music more so. I like rock music, but I still love pop music. I grew up on pop music. I've got no brothers. I've got an older sister. My musical tastes were set on the Spice Girls and the Backstreet Boys, and these are wonderfully written pop songs. But I think the problem is a lot of those songs too were a bunch of songwriters in a room trying to write a hit song. And it seems as though that's what's happening more and more and more, to the point now where, from my ears, current pop music, it could be anyone. Insert artist's name here, because it's all this. So much of it sounds so similar because it's all written by the same formula. There's very few artists who are actually.
Listen, but you're hitting a really good point. Who are the greatest, or at least the most popular artists of the last decade, right? Like, in terms of pop and individual artists, Adele, right?
Yep.
Tay-Tay, right? Tay-Tay's just ridiculous right now.
She's got her own thing.
Even One Direction, when they split, Harry Styles continued this stardom when it's just Harry. It's Harry's music now. Maybe it started at One Direction. My point where I'm going with all of this is, and I'm really trying to think, the idea of the NSYNC, Backstreet Boys, Spice Girls, I think that era, that's gone. People want authentic. They want real artists, and the people who, and again, you can put going into R&B into all of this, the same type of thing when you got Beyonce, who is now like moving into country, I guess. It's going to be really interesting if it's authentic country, and if the country community gets behind it, or if it's just a money grab. I don't know yet. I haven't really had a chance to listen to the album, but the thing that I was like, if she's like legit, like if she's like, you know what, I'm going to make a country music album, and it's going to be from in here. It's not going to be 10 guys writing songs for me and lyrics, and I just got to go out there and sing it, but it's going to actually be me making this music. I think it'll be really interesting to see if it's successful. But again, the concept of that's right. And even when you go to rock, you start thinking of bands that, my favorite band of all time is Everclear. they're my favorite alternate
cool.
rock band. I love them. I went to as many concerts as I possibly could go, and they're brilliant. And the one thing that I always
are they still going?
I mean, if you want to call it that, but yeah, they're touring. They do tour to
Right.
much smaller venues now, and
sure.
And yeah, they don't sound as great as they used to, but I still love them. And as you said earlier, it's the nostalgia thing for me. It takes me back when I listen to them. But one of the reasons why I loved them was because it was their sound, right? Like when I heard an Everclear song somewhere in the public, I knew it was them straight away. Korn, Limp Bizkit, all of these sounds.
Queen.
And I think you're right. The pop side of things where there is this generic sound, maybe they have a hit or two, but they won't stick around for a really long time because, that authenticity, that uniqueness about them, which is why Taylor is so popular, is because you could argue that it's not authentic. I think it is. I think it's very authentic what she writes about and what she is and who she's talking about.
I think it is too.
And so you look at that, and I think the public are smart enough over a longer period of time to be like, this is good. We like it. We like
this is real.
This is real.
Yeah, I think that's what it is. This is real and this is authentic. Well, again, here's another example. The fact that you and I are doing a podcast now, we've been talking for over an hour, and there's a huge hunger for this kind of media because people want authenticity. They're sick of being told how to feel and what their opinions are, being handed their opinions. They want to go, you know what? I'm actually intelligent enough to form my own opinion on this issue. So I'm going to take the time that I have to listen to a, 1, 2, 3 hour conversation with someone on this topic and make up my own mind, which is really encouraging and exciting. Hence why, the mainstream news or the corporate news and radio is just dying in the ass, and podcast world long form conversations is just growing and growing and growing because people want authenticity. And again, let's bring it back to you. You're doing something that is, as far as the traditional bowling world would consider, is weird, but that's because it's authentic. Kind of what we were talking about before. If you had just cooked this thing up to create a character, you wouldn't be able to have maintained it. And you definitely wouldn't have maintained it through the abuse you got, because you would have just been like, I don't need this shit. This isn't what I signed up for. I'm out. I'm just going to start bowling normally. But it's like, it's authentic. It's like, this is how I fucking bowl, man. Love it or hate it. You might think it's goofy. You might think it's cool, but it's like, this is what I do, and check out how well it works.
Yeah. You've got to weigh up. It's the scales. How much do I love something, and do I love it enough that it will outweigh what everyone else thinks? Right? Like, if you have that scale in the love side and it's heavier, and that's for me what it was. I love what I do so very much that it outweighed what all of the haters and naysayers and traditionalists were trying to do to pull me down. And if it didn't, if I didn't have it, maybe you're right. Maybe they would have won. I would have quit, or I would have said, I didn't sign up for this bullshit, so I'm out. And you do see a lot of that. You do see a lot of it. And, to some degree, sometimes it's warranted if it's unhealthy for you to continue. Like, I get it. But for me, there wasn't any other way forward. Sorry, there wasn't any other way other than forward. I had to. If I didn't, I would have been more sad. I would have been more depressed and more miserable at the fact that I never gave it a crack because I was too worried about what someone else was saying about me.
And then you break through that barrier, and now look where we're at. You've got people either side of you who have adopted this weird technique that you just created out of being a little boy learning how to bowl.
Now I'm the one saying, stop this bullshit because you're all too good.
Yeah.
And let me just do it by myself again. This is so much better.
You two-handed freak.
That's right. You're such a loser bowling with two hands.
Bowl properly, idiot.
Go back to where you're from.
Yeah, wow, isn't that funny? Your own resilience has come back to bite you in the
I
ass,
know
man.
it's both flattering and annoying.
Yeah. Wow. So where are you ranking right now? Have you been crook?
I was a little crook at the beginning of this season. Yeah. So let's say for the last 10 years, I've had the player of the year, our most valuable player for the PBA, 7 times. So
Wow.
that's awesome.
Okay.
But the last couple of seasons, I think I was 3rd last year, and we're halfway through the season now, and I'm 7th at the moment.
Okay.
Now, believe me, I'm miserable at the sound of that. Like, even 3rd is a tough number to say. It doesn't sit well with me. But we have.
You do have a 2-year-old.
I do have a 2-year-old. I still have. That's true. But I still have half a full season to go. So there's 3 major championships, plus a bunch of other championships in the middle there. So I can turn a somewhat average season into a very, very good season in the matter of 4 tournaments. I can win 4, and it'll be a fantastic season. It hasn't been as consistently good as it has in the previous few years. So just more motivation for me to get up to it.
Yeah. How long you been doing this now? How long you been on at the pro level?
14 years at the pro level.
Wow.
Yeah.
And
long time.
And again, kind of we were talking about this before. Like there's no need for there to be an end in sight. I mean, you could realistically, you could probably maintain this if you stay in shape and stay sharp for 15, 20 years if you really want.
Oh, probably by the time I'm in my late 40s. So I'm 40 now. And so by my late 40s, it would be very unusual and rare to be at the top 5 in the world. It would be very
really?
unusual.
Okay. So there's no 50-year-olds.
And there are, but they're just not top 5. It's very unusual. So you can still compete, you can still make money, you can still travel the tour, and you can still have great weeks. But like I said at the very beginning of this, it's 6 to 8 hours a day, 5 days straight for 20 weeks straight. And so when you're in your 50s, you're going to get exhausted. And we're traveling. So one week we're in California, the next we're in Nevada, then we're in Pennsylvania, then we're in Michigan. And so it's not just bowling, then going to the hotel and resting. It's bowling, you finish the tournament, you got to pack all your crap up, you got to travel to the other side of the country, you got to reset everything back up, you get a night's sleep. Oh, it's practice day. Like, I need to practice.
Yeah. Wow.
The next day I'm competing again. And so it is really, really heavy and hard. And so you do find, whilst I may be able to do it, maybe not as good. So yeah, I've got to get back on it in the next few years because it's just only going to get harder and harder.
Well, it sounds like, if you've been doing it, if you're someone who's been a world-class professional bowler for 20 years, it's probably sounds like it's more of a choice. Like physically, if you wanted to, you could be a 50-year-old and still maintain that. Like there's no reason why a 50-year-old couldn't do that, but then would they want to? Like, because if you've been doing it that long, you're probably like, I want to hang out with my family, to be honest. I think I've maybe had enough, and maybe they just pull back.
Here's a perfect story for you, right? So I'm 40 years old, and in my brain, I'm 25. That's how I think.
Yeah.
That I work out like I'm 25. I push myself.
Geez, you're 25. You're mature in your brain.
Right. Yeah. Until I work out with a 25-year-old. That's when I get the taste of reality pops into my head. Now, when I'm 50, can I tell myself, you can still travel this, you can still compete this much, you can still win, I'm going to tell myself that if I choose to at that age to continue on. However, the reality is, I know it's just easier to get fitter, to last the distance, the younger you are. And I get that. And so what I'm trying to do now is maybe I'm not going to be, even as a 40-year-old, because a lot of the guys on the Pro Tour now are in their early 20s to mid-20s. I know that coming down the stretch of tournaments or the end of a season, I'm probably going to feel a little more tired and than my competitors. So I need to separate myself elsewhere. And in bowling, I've got to be smarter. I've got to make better decisions on adjustments, on equipment selection, on reading the oil pattern. I've got to be better and smarter at that than everyone else, because maybe I just do get a little bit more tired than someone else who's younger. And so my shot making may be not as prolific as theirs at that point in the tournament. So I need to make sure I've given myself as many good shot opportunities based on the information that I've been able to decipher in the game of bowling. And that's where, as a younger kid, that experience, which is we say in all things, experience is invaluable, because they will make a bad decision, but they're still energetic and athletic enough to create it, to make a better shot later on.
This is something that's kind of intriguing and exciting about a sport like yours, is that exactly that. There's a wisdom that comes from playing more and more games. You know, it's all, we talk about this with practice. You can practice as much as you want, but as soon as it's an actual game or an actual gig, you perform differently. It's just what happens. So you have to have, game practice. So when you're, at 40, you've felt the pressure of a lot of tournaments and have either buckled or overcome many times. And that you can't practice that without doing that. And you can't emulate that. Whereas a 20-year-old kid who's, fit, roaring to go, end of the season, still just as fresh as he was at the start, he does not have the wisdom that you have. So while exactly that, this is what's interesting about it. It's an interesting battle. One of them is kind of brute force, and one of them's like wisdom and choices that you can't teach that without time.
Yeah.
Whereas, as you start to push 50, there's only so much energy that the tank can hold. So it's just an interesting game, man. Like,
not harder.
Yeah. Yeah. And those smarts will only increase the more you do it. One other question I had was, what's your workouts like? What's your routine? What does a top level 10-pin bowler do in order to prepare and get ready for your sport? You're not bashing into people all day. You don't have to have insanely high heart rate cardio stuff, but what do you need? What do you find helps you, and what hinders you?
Yeah. So we are a repetitious sport. So we're doing the same similar action over and over and over. And so those muscle groups that you're using are going to need to be flexible. They also need to be strong, but they don't need to be strong in the sense of like bulk, because as soon as you grow muscle mass, you lose flexibility. And so our rotation of our body, and traditional players have long arm swings. So your rotation needs to be very fluid. Everything needs to be quite relaxed while you're bowling. And there really isn't this moment in which you need to be incredibly tense and exert a copious amount of strength. It is timing. It is the ability to create momentum of a bowling ball using your technique with as little energy as possible. Again, because we're bowling for 8 hours a day. So if you can imagine throwing a ball that's 8 kilos in weight, 15 and a half pounds, and you decide, I'm going to give this everything I got from the very first frame, like, you will be exhausted by the end.
Yeah.
And that's fine, but you got to do it again tomorrow. You got to do it again on Wednesday. You got to do it again on Thursday and Friday, and then the championship's over. Then you got to do it again next week.
I've just remembered every time I would go bowling, which was randomly, and then when I started working there, I would, throw a few. I would wake up the next morning and my left glute was so sore, and there'd be a moment like, what the fuck's gone on? What have I done? And it's bowling. It's the stomp, the plant, and the fizz through from that.
Through
and it's like, but it's only the one side, and there's and my torso.
Well, we
a little
do try
bit.
to
It was like
our bodies out a little bit, but I love playing sport in general. And so I've incorporated a lot of sport into my routine. So like I love playing squash and tennis. You know, two games in which they require me to use my legs in terms of a bursting action. There's a lot of stretching involved, right? I have to be nimble to play both of those sports. And so making sure that you incorporate a really great stretching program into your legs, into your core, your neck even. Like I know that sounds a bit silly, but I highly recommend people to work on their neck a lot more than they probably do, because it's such it is a bridge to everything as far as it's like your back to me anyway. And so there's a lot of lightweight session. We're not trying to, again, build massive amounts of mass. We just need to be strong. And so if you ever have a jar that needs opening, go ask a bowler. I'm telling you, they will open that jar. Like we have strong hands. So yeah, I think it's not in this essence of like, let's go to a competition and you know, we're all cut and have certain muscle groups that, you know, that want to dance or whatever. But I will say that a lot of bowlers are really fit. Like they're just fit. They can run for a long time. We can stretch. We're nimble. And again, we're very, very strong, but not in the sense of like muscular, like, oh yeah, I can, you know, break this chain in half. Not quite the same.
It's not as necessary in your sport.
No.
And it sounds a lot like it's about being on, you know, like I hadn't realized how much mental focus it requires until talking to you about it. One, within the game, to understand what's happening to the lane and what's going to happen to your ball, which ball to choose, what he's doing to the lane to affect what's going to happen to you. That's a lot of mental focus within the game. And then you got to do it again the next day, and you got to travel, and you got like, if you're not sleeping, if you're not taking general care of yourself and feeling good when you get out of bed, you're cooked. It's not going to last very long.
No, it's not. And you're right. And again, that's another thing that is a bit of a stereotype about bowling, is this burger eating, beer drinking type of professional environment. Look, I'm sure all athletes don't mind a beer or a burger every now and then, but even we bowlers, if that were to be our diets, well, you can tell the ones who do. Let's put it that way. You can tell the bowlers who are unhealthy, they just cannot last. They just can't. It's long days. Your legs are tired. Your arms are tired. Your head is tired because you're thinking so much. And yes, the guys who look after themselves, the guys who are working out, who are eating well, it's no coincidence that they tend to be near the top of the standings, you know, year in, year out.
And in order to maintain that being at the top of the standings, how many tournaments do you have to compete in and do well in?
Yeah, so we're January through to May is when we compete. And we'll play a tournament a week with a couple of breaks in the middle there. So I think we'll be somewhere in the 20s. It does vary, because some years we'll have an additional tournament added to the calendar. There may be a couple taken off. There may be a new venue that we're going to. And so it's not like, like the NRL. There are 26 rounds every year. This is what it's going to be. And then you have the finals. For us, it's a little bit different. You have, I'm going to say between 20 and 25 regular tournaments and major championships. Then you have the playoffs, which is the top 16 throughout that season will then make the playoffs. We also have a PBA league, which is a team event bowling, which we also do on the side while we're competing individually. And then you've got another PBA Tour finals, which is the top 8 over the last previous few seasons can carry forward. So there's a big season, there's major championships, and then there's all these little roll-on effects that if you do well, you compete more. If you don't do well, your season is cut short. So it's January through to May, with the occasional week or here or there later in the year. But the bulk of it is in those 5 months.
And is there any kind of competition here in Australia, or it's just not even doesn't?
We
come close?
do have tournaments. I grew up on these tournaments. They're great tournaments. They're just, first place will be, $2,000 or $3,000. Where when I win a tournament in the States, it'll be 200 grand. So, yeah, especially when you count into those USDs. Everyone, all my mates who are traveling, they're like, "Oh man, the Aussie dollar is
lost 50% of my cash."
Yeah, they're just plummeting, and I'm looking at it going, keep falling.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, bring those US dollars home, man. It's always a treat. Yeah, totally. Oh, Belmo, man, I really appreciate you coming on here, dude. This has been a very informative chat, mate. It's great to reconnect.
Mate, honestly, it has been too long between drinks, and the next time you are in town, you got to hit me up. We'll go for a roll. Grab a beer at one of the pubs that we used to frequent when we were of age but younger.
Yes, of course.
We never snuck
into the absolutely.
Back in the day.
Oh, stop it! Come on. There was heaps of stuff to do in Orange, apart from go to the bowling alley and sneak into the pub.
We'll mate, definitely have to do something like that again.
Yeah, where can folks find you, man? Where should I send them?
Mate, look at all the usual suspects on social media at Belmo, BELMO. YouTube, Same thing. I'm actually doing a little bit more YouTubing. It's the one thing I was reluctant to get into because I knew the time and energy. And while I'm competing, I was like, man, I should do like a series where you can follow me behind the scenes of these major championships. And so last season was the first year I did it. Awesome. I had a blast. I actually had a lot of fun. And so you see the ups and downs, you see the wins and the losses, and I'm doing it again this season. And so for the final 3 major championships, having my little YouTube videographer team I shouldn't say team, it's one person, that's following me around and doing all that. It's a lot of fun.
A lot of work,
it is a lot of work. And it is because when you're finished, you don't just go. You're like, right, what do we need to say? What do we got to record before we leave? But one of the reasons why I do love it is my kids get to watch it. And, they will call me after we drop an episode, and we try to drop it every day. So if I bowl on the Monday, then the Tuesday we drop the Monday, and we kind of do it like that every time. And so it is awesome when the kids are going to school, they call me up. Oh, we just watched your vlog. That's so cool. What happened? Or sometimes they're really empathetic. They're like, hey, Dad. Yeah, we knew it was a really tough day for you. We love you. And it's like, I love the fact that, family and friends can actually see what is happening, behind closed doors. I love it. So that's absolutely one of the reasons why I like it.
Good for you, man. That comes back to that authenticity thing. And I'm sure that complete strangers will resonate with that as well.
I hope so.
Anyone who's, remotely enthusiastic about bowling, it's intriguing to know what your day in, day out is, and what you're definitely, they see the wins and celebrate the wins with you. But, what's your day like when you have a real stinker? That's interesting to see. And how do you overcome it? How do you feel about it? How do you take it? Like, this is good content, in my opinion.
Yeah. I hope it is anyway. I'm definitely not doing it for the, for the views, because I think it is a very, if you ever do get a chance to watch it, you'll see like this isn't meant to be like high octane action of bowling. This is like a true account of my days, my mental processes. So there's a lot of talking that goes involved, but I love it. I'm enjoying sharing it. I'm enjoying my family being able to watch it. And you're right, there are some bowling fans that'll say like, oh, dude, we had no idea that you feel this way after a bad tournament. Like, you're like us. You're just the same as us.
Oh, wow.
And I'm like, I am.
He's a mere mortal after all,
Exactly. Mate, no, anytime you're in town, hit me up. If you're watching this, thank you very much for watching. Follow me on all the social media stuff if you want. You don't have to. It's all good. And we will go bowling, Mr. Furs, you and I soon.
Definitely, Belmo. Cheers, brother. I'll talk to you soon, man. All the best.
You got it, mate.